Look, I'm going to level with you. 2026 isn't going to magically fix whatever's broken in your life. Sorry to burst that New Year's bubble. But here's the thing the ancient Stoics figured out 2,000 years ago that we're still too distracted by TikTok to understand. You don't need a new year, a new you, or a new anything. You need to stop running from who you actually are and start building something unbreakable from the inside out. Marcus Aurelius commanded the Roman Empire while dealing with plagues, wars, and senators who'd sell their own mothers for a promotion, and he did it all while writing philosophy in a tent on the battlefield. Meanwhile, we can't handle a passive-aggressive email from Karen in accounting. So buckle up, because these 11 Stoic life lessons are about to dismantle every excuse you've been hiding behind and rebuild you into someone who doesn't just survive 2026, you dominate it. Lesson 1. Control the controllables, release the rest. Here's a fun fact. 90% of your stress comes from obsessing over things you have zero control over. Your boss's mood, the weather ruining your plans, whether your ex is watching your Instagram stories. Epictetus, who went from literal slave to one of history's most influential philosophers, had this wild idea. Focus only on what's in your control. Revolutionary, right? He called it the Dichotomy of Control, which sounds fancy, but basically means your thoughts, your actions, your responses, that's your kingdom. Everything else, not your circus, not your monkeys. Think about it like this. You're playing a video game, but you keep screaming at the screen because the game's difficulty setting won't change. That's what worrying about uncontrollable things looks like. The Stoics weren't advocating for apathy. They were advocating for strategic energy allocation. Pour your energy into your decisions, your effort, your character. Let go of needing specific outcomes. When you stop trying to control the universe and start controlling yourself, something incredible happens. You become actually powerful instead of just feeling perpetually powerless. But here's where it gets interesting, because the Stoics took this further than just don't worry, be happy bumper sticker philosophy. Lesson 2. Amor Fati. Fall in love with your fate. Amor Fati, it's Latin for love of fate, and before you roll your eyes thinking this is some toxic positivity nonsense, hear me out. This isn't about pretending everything's sunshine and rainbows when life's handing you a flaming bag of garbage. It's about something way more hardcore. Nietzsche, who studied the Stoics obsessively, put it perfectly. My formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, in all eternity. Sounds insane, right? Your car breaks down, you lose your job, your relationship implodes, and you're supposed to love that? Well, yes and no. See, the Stoics understood something we've forgotten. Resistance to reality is the source of almost all psychological suffering. You got fired? That's a fact. You can spend 6 months bitter and paralyzed, or you can accept it happened, extract the lesson, and move forward stronger. The event is neutral. Your judgment makes it good or bad. Marcus Aurelius, literally the most powerful man in the known world, faced betrayal, death, war, and loss constantly. His journal entry? A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it. That's amor fati. Everything that happens to you is fuel. Every setback is raw material for your character development. When you stop fighting reality and start using it, you become alchemically unbreakable. Still with me? Because we're just getting warmed up, and this next lesson is where most people's self-improvement journey goes completely off the rails. Lesson 3. Memento Mori. Remember you will die. Death. Let's talk about it. I know, we live in a culture that treats death like Voldemort. We don't say the name. We avoid it, fear it, pretend it's not coming for every single one of us. But the Stoics? They meditated on death daily. Memento Mori. Remember you will die. They kept skulls on their desks as reminders. They whispered it to themselves before important decisions. And weirdly, it made them more alive, not less. Here's the brutal truth. You're going to die. Maybe in 60 years, maybe tomorrow. Your parents will die. Everyone you love will die. Every embarrassing thing you did, every grudge you're holding, every petty drama consuming your mental energy, it all ends in the same place. And once you truly absorb that, a strange freedom emerges. Suddenly, that argument with your friend seems trivial. That risk you've been avoiding seems necessary. That dream you've been postponing becomes urgent. Seneca said, "Let us prepare our minds as if we'd come to the very end of life. Let us postpone nothing. Let us balance life's books each day." The man was basically saying, live like you're on borrowed time, because you are. Stop saving your good china for special occasions. Stop waiting for the right time to start that business, write that book, tell that person you love them. The Stoics weren't morbid pessimists. They were radical realists who understood that death is the ultimate deadline, and deadlines force action. When you remember you're mortal, you stop wasting time on things that don't matter and start building a life that does. And speaking of things that actually matter, let's destroy one of the biggest lies you've been told about success. Lesson 4. Virtue is the only true good. Okay, capitalism is going to hate me for this one, but here goes. Money, fame, success, six-pack abs, the perfect relationship, none of it will make you happy. The Stoics were unambiguous about this. Virtue, meaning excellence of character, is the only true good. Everything else is what they called preferred indifference. Nice to have, sure, but ultimately irrelevant to your well-being. I can hear you already. Easy for a Roman emperor to say. But Marcus Aurelius literally had everything, power, wealth, status beyond imagination, and still wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." The dude could have had anything, and what did he conclude? That his character was the only thing that mattered. Epictetus, who owned literally nothing as a slave, came to the exact same conclusion. Funny how both extremes arrived at identical wisdom. Here's why this matters for you reinventing yourself in 2026. You've been chasing the wrong things. You think getting the promotion will fix you, losing 20 pounds will complete you, finding the perfect partner will validate you. But the Stoics knew, and neuroscience now confirms, that hedonic adaptation means you'll always return to your baseline happiness regardless of external circumstances. That new car thrill? Gone in 3 months. That promotion high? Fades fast. But virtue? Becoming more courageous, more just, more wise, more self-disciplined, that's the only upgrade that's permanent. That's the only achievement that can't be taken from you by recession, illness, or bad luck. When you make excellence of character your goal instead of external validation, you become genuinely unbreakable because your worth isn't dependent on anything outside yourself. Now, let's get into something practical because philosophy without application is just intellectual masturbation. Lesson 5. Practice negative visualization. The Stoics had this practice called premeditatio malorum, premeditation of evils. Sounds cheerful, right? But stay with me because this technique is genuinely life-changing. Essentially, you regularly imagine losing everything you value, your health, your wealth, your relationships, your possessions. You vividly picture worst-case scenarios. Before you call this the most depressing exercise ever invented, understand what it actually does. It inoculates you against misfortune and cultivates gratitude simultaneously. When you regularly imagine your partner leaving, you stop taking them for granted. When you visualize your business failing, you prepare backup plans and appreciate its current success more. When you contemplate losing your mobility, you're grateful for your working legs instead of complaining they're not more toned. Seneca practiced this by occasionally living like he was poor, eating simple food, sleeping on hard surfaces, wearing plain clothes. He wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" The man was literally exposure therapying himself against the fear of poverty. And here's the kicker. When bad things inevitably happen, because they will, you're not blindsided, you're prepared. You've already mentally rehearsed this scenario. While everyone else is panicking, you are responding with the calm of someone who saw it coming. This isn't pessimism, it's pragmatic optimism. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst, accept whatever comes. But preparation is only half the battle. You also need to understand this crucial Stoic principle about human nature. Lesson 6. The obstacle is the way. This might be the most famous Stoic idea, popularized by Ryan Holiday's book, but it goes back to Marcus Aurelius. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Read that again. Your obstacle is your path forward, not a detour around it, not something to overcome and move past. The obstacle itself is the way. This is counterintuitive as hell in our obstacle-avoiding, comfort-seeking culture. We treat problems like they're interruptions to our real life, when actually they are our real life. The challenges you face aren't preventing you from becoming who you need to be. They're literally the mechanism through which you become that person. You don't build muscle without resistance. You don't build character without adversity. Consider this. You want to be more patient, but you never encounter frustrating situations. Impossible. You want to be courageous, but you never face anything scary? Can't happen. You want to be resilient, but everything goes smoothly. You'll stay fragile. The universe isn't being cruel when it sends you obstacles. It's providing the exact curriculum you need for your desired transformation. Thomas Edison failed 10,000 times before inventing the light bulb. When asked about his failures, he said he didn't fail, he just found 10,000 ways that didn't work. That's Stoicism in action. Every failed attempt wasn't an obstacle to success, it was the way to success. Your job rejection? That's redirecting you to a better fit. Your relationship ending? That's freeing you for something healthier. Your business failure? That's teaching you lessons no success ever could. The obstacle is the way isn't just a catchy phrase, it's a fundamental reframe of reality that transforms every setback into a setup. And while we're reframing reality, let's tackle the biggest mental trap that's probably sabotaging you right now. Lesson 7. Your opinion creates your suffering. Here's an uncomfortable truth. Almost nothing that happens to you is inherently good or bad. Your brain assigns meaning to events, and that meaning determines your experience. The Stoics were obsessed with this idea. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Let's test this. It's raining. Is that good or bad? Well, if you're a farmer during a drought, it's amazing. If you planned an outdoor wedding, it's terrible. If you're depressed and the pathetic fallacy matches your mood, it's poetic. The rain is just rain. Your judgment makes it good or bad. This applies to everything. You got stuck in traffic. Your opinion makes it frustrating or an opportunity to listen to that podcast. You got criticized. Your opinion makes it devastating or valuable feedback. Epictetus took this even further. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. Death isn't terrible, fear of death is terrible. Poverty isn't shameful, our judgment about poverty is shameful. You see where this goes? If your suffering comes from your opinions about events rather than the events themselves, then you can eliminate suffering by changing your opinions. Not easy, but possible. This doesn't mean gaslighting yourself into pretending bad things are good. It means recognizing that your interpretive lens is adjustable. When someone cuts you off in traffic, you can choose the interpretation, "They're a terrible person disrespecting me," and spend 20 minutes angry. Or, "They're probably rushing to an emergency or just made a mistake like I have 1,000 times," and move on in 20 seconds. Same event, different opinion, completely different emotional outcome. So how do you actually implement this in real life? Glad you asked, because this next lesson is pure tactical gold. Lesson 8. Practice voluntary discomfort. All right, let's get uncomfortable, literally. The Stoics didn't just philosophize from their couches eating grapes like some kind of ancient self-help gurus. They actively practiced discomfort. Cold showers, fasting, sleeping on the floor, wearing less clothing in winter. And no, they weren't masochists with a weird kink for suffering. They were training themselves to be resilient. Here's the logic that's going to change your life. Comfort is a trap. Every time you choose the easy option, the comfortable path, the convenient solution, you're making yourself weaker. Your comfort zone isn't a zone at all. It's a shrinking prison. The more you avoid discomfort, the smaller your world becomes. Eventually, leaving your house feels hard. Making a phone call feels scary. Having a difficult conversation feels impossible. Epictetus took this even further. Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. Death isn't terrible, fear of death is terrible. Poverty isn't shameful, our judgment about poverty is shameful. You see where this goes? If your suffering comes from your opinions about events rather than the events themselves, then you can eliminate suffering by changing your opinions. Not easy, but possible. This doesn't mean gaslighting yourself into pretending bad things are good. It means recognizing that your interpretive lens is adjustable. When someone cuts you off in traffic, you can choose the interpretation, "They're a terrible person disrespecting me," and spend 20 minutes angry. Or, "They're probably rushing to an emergency or just made a mistake like I have 1,000 times," and move on in 20 seconds. Same event, different opinion, completely different emotional outcome. So how do you actually implement this in real life? Glad you asked, because this next lesson is pure tactical gold.
Lesson 9. You are not your thoughts. Pop quiz. How many thoughts do you have per day? If you guessed somewhere between 6,000 and 60,000, you're in the ballpark. Now here's the follow-up question. How many of those thoughts are complete nonsense? Most of them. Your brain is a prediction machine running millions of simulations, and most of them are anxious catastrophizing, repetitive loops, or straight-up fiction. The Stoics understood this 2 millennia before cognitive behavioral therapy made it trendy. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't talking about controlling which thoughts appear. That's impossible. He was talking about recognizing that thoughts are just mental events, not facts, not commands, not your identity. Here's the shift. Most people identify completely with their thoughts. A thought pops up, "I'm a failure," and they believe it, feel it, become it. But the Stoics practiced observational distance. Oh, there's a thought that I'm a failure. Interesting. Where's the evidence? Is this useful? No. Moving on. The thought still appeared, but it has no power because you didn't feed it. Epictetus nailed this with his advice about dealing with disturbing impressions. Remember that it is not he who gives abuse or blows who affronts, but the view we take of these things as insulting. When, therefore, anyone provokes you, be assured that it is your own opinion which provokes you. Your coworker makes a snide comment, the thought appears, "They hate me, I'm inadequate, I should quit." But that's just a thought. You can observe it like a cloud passing through the sky of your consciousness and choose a different response. This is liberation. When you stop identifying with every thought that flickers through your mind, you realize you have a choice. You're not the anxious voice in your head, you're the awareness observing that voice. And from that place of awareness, you can decide which thoughts to engage with and which to let pass by like irrelevant background noise. Speaking of liberation, this next principle is probably the most misunderstood aspect of Stoicism, but get it right and you unlock a superpower. Lesson 10. Practice sympatheia. We're all connected. Wait, the Stoics believed in interconnectedness? Weren't they supposed to be these emotionless robots who didn't care about anyone? Completely wrong. The Stoics were deeply committed to what they called sympatheia, the idea that all of humanity is interconnected, like organs in a single body. When one part suffers, the whole suffers. When you help others, you help yourself. Marcus Aurelius was obsessed with this concept. What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee. And my personal favorite, men exist for the sake of one another. This wasn't soft, touchy-feely philosophy. This was practical wisdom. The emperor understood that his well-being was inseparable from the well-being of his empire. Isolated self-interest is actually self-destructive. Here's why this matters for reinventing yourself in 2026. You can't become unbreakable in isolation. You need community. You need purpose beyond yourself. You need to contribute. The modern epidemic of depression and anxiety isn't just about individual dysfunction. It's about disconnection. We've built a society where everyone's staring at screens, living in their own bubbles, optimizing for personal success while feeling empty and alone. The Stoics knew that virtue isn't complete without justice, which means treating others fairly and contributing to the common good. Epictetus taught that every person has two fundamental identities, your individual identity and your identity as a member of the human community. Neglect either one and you're incomplete. Practically speaking, this means your reinvention can't just be about your success, your goals, your transformation. It has to include how you're contributing to others. Who are you helping? What value are you adding to your community? How are you making the world slightly better than you found it? When you align your personal development with service to others, everything changes. Your motivation becomes sustainable because it's bigger than you. Your setbacks matter less because you're playing a longer game. Your success feels meaningful because it's shared. But connection requires something most people are terrible at, which brings us to a lesson that's going to sting a little.
Lesson 11. Practice radical honesty, especially with yourself. Final lesson, and it's the one that separates people who talk about change from people who actually transform. Radical honesty. The Stoics were absolutely uncompromising about truth-telling, starting with the person in the mirror. Self-deception is the foundation of all dysfunction. You can't fix problems you won't acknowledge. You can't grow past patterns you won't admit exist. Marcus Aurelius practiced this brutal self-honesty in his journals. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. He didn't write those meditations for publication. They were his private conversations with himself, holding himself accountable to the highest standards. He documented his failures. He called out his own hypocrisy. He didn't sugarcoat his shortcomings or make excuses. Here's what most people do. They construct elaborate narratives to protect their ego. I would have succeeded, but the market crashed. I would have gotten in shape, but I got too busy. I would have started that business, but the timing wasn't right. These aren't explanations. They're sophisticated lies you tell yourself to avoid the uncomfortable truth that you didn't prioritize it, you got scared, you chose comfort over commitment. Seneca wrote entire essays about how we lie to ourselves about time. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. We say we don't have time to exercise, but we have time to scroll social media for 2 hours. We say we can't afford therapy, but we can afford the latest iPhone. We say we're too tired to work on our dreams, but we stay up late binge-watching shows. The Stoics would call this out immediately. You're lying to yourself about your priorities. So here's the uncomfortable challenge for 2026. Start telling yourself the truth. Not the comfortable version, not the version that makes you the victim or the hero, the actual truth. Why didn't you follow through on last year's goals? Really, not the story you tell at parties, the real reason. What are you genuinely afraid of? What are you avoiding? What patterns keep repeating in your life because you won't address the root cause? This level of honesty is terrifying because it strips away all your defenses, but it's also the only foundation for genuine transformation. You can't become unbreakable while hiding behind comfortable delusions. The Stoics knew that wisdom begins with acknowledging what you don't know and who you aren't yet. Only from that place of radical honesty can you actually build something real. Epictetus had students who would come to him full of philosophical knowledge, but no practical wisdom. He'd tell them, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. Stop talking about who you want to become and start being honest about who you are right now. The gap between those two things, that's your work, that's your obstacle, that's your way forward. And here's the beautiful paradox the Stoics understood. When you stop lying to yourself, you stop needing external validation. When you face your flaws directly, criticism loses its sting because you've already acknowledged those flaws yourself. When you're honest about your limitations, you stop pretending to be something you're not and start building on the foundation of what you actually are. That's where real strength comes from, not from a perfect image, but from honest self-knowledge and continuous improvement. Now look, we've covered 11 Stoic life lessons that have survived 2,000 years for a reason. These aren't trendy productivity hacks or motivational fluff that'll be irrelevant next month. This is battle-tested wisdom from people who faced genuine hardship, slavery, exile, war, plague, political assassination, and not only survived,
but thrived with inner peace and unshakable character. But here's the thing about wisdom. It's completely worthless until you apply it. You can watch this video, nod along, think, yeah, that makes sense, and then do absolutely nothing different tomorrow. Most people will do exactly that. They'll go back to their comfortable patterns, their familiar complaints, their same old excuses. And in December 2026, they'll be making the same resolutions for 2027, wondering why nothing ever changes. Or, and here's where you get to make a choice right now, you could actually implement one of these lessons today. Not all 11, just one. Pick the one that resonated most. Maybe it's controlling the controllables, and you're going to stop obsessing over things outside your power. Maybe it's Memento Mori, and you're going to live today like it matters, because it might be your last. Maybe it's voluntary discomfort, and you're going to do something hard on purpose. The Stoics didn't believe in massive overnight transformations. They believed in consistent daily practice. Epictetus said, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. So decide right now, which lesson are you committing to practice for the next 30 days? Write it down. Tell someone about it. Make it concrete. And here's my challenge to you. Come back to this video in 1 month and leave a comment about what changed. Not what you learned, what actually changed in your life from applying these principles. Because that's the ultimate test of philosophy. Does it work? Does it make you stronger, calmer, more resilient, more effective in the real world? The Stoics would tell you that 2026 doesn't owe you anything. The universe isn't conspiring to make your dreams come true. Life is going to throw obstacles at you. People will disappoint you. Plans will fall apart. Unexpected challenges will emerge. That's guaranteed. What's not guaranteed is how you respond. That's entirely up to you. You can be reactive, emotional, victim mentality, blaming circumstances and other people for your situation, or you can be like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, people who faced circumstances way harder than anything you're dealing with and chose excellence anyway. You want to reinvent yourself in 2026? You want to become unbreakable? Then stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop making excuses. Stop lying to yourself about why you can't. Start controlling what you can control. Start loving your fate. Start remembering you're mortal. Start building virtue. Start practicing discomfort. Start telling yourself the truth. The path to becoming unbreakable isn't mysterious or complicated. The Stoics laid it out 2,000 years ago. The only question is, are you going to walk it, or are you going to keep watching videos about walking it? Marcus Aurelius wrote, you could be good today, but instead you choose tomorrow. Stop choosing tomorrow. Start today. Start now. If this video kicked you in the teeth in exactly the way you need it, hit that like button and subscribe, because we're diving deep into practical philosophy that actually changes lives, not just feel-good quotes for Instagram. Drop a comment telling me which of these 11 lessons hit hardest for you and what you're committing to practice. And if you know someone who needs this message, someone who's stuck, someone who's making excuses, someone who's ready for real change, share this with them. Sometimes the most valuable thing you can do for someone is show them they're capable of way more than they believe. The Stoics proved that ordinary people can achieve extraordinary resilience and inner peace regardless of external circumstances. They left us the roadmap. Now it's on you to follow it. 2026 is waiting. The obstacle is the way. Your fate is ready for you to love it. Your mortality is ticking. What are you going to do about it? That's it for this one. Stay strong, stay honest, stay stoic. And remember, you're not becoming a new person in 2026. You're becoming who you always had the potential to be. The unbreakable version was always there. You're just finally clearing away everything that's been hiding it. Now go, do the work, become unbreakable. I'll see you in the next one.
The truth about Stoicism nobody tells you. All right. Before we wrap this up, we need to address the elephant in the room, the massive misconception about Stoicism that's probably screwing up your entire approach to this philosophy. Ready? Here it is. Stoicism is not about suppressing your emotions. It's not about becoming a cold, unfeeling robot who doesn't care about anything. That's not Stoicism. That's emotional repression with a philosophy degree. The Stoics made a crucial distinction that gets lost in translation. They didn't say, don't have emotions. They said, don't be controlled by your emotions. Huge difference. Marcus Aurelius grieved when his children died, multiple children, because infant mortality was brutal in ancient Rome. Seneca wrote passionate letters full of emotion. Epictetus clearly cared deeply about his students. These weren't emotionless automatons. They were deeply feeling human beings who'd learned to respond wisely rather than react impulsively. Here's the nuance. The Stoics recognized that initial emotional reactions are automatic and involuntary. You can't stop the flash of anger when someone cuts you off in traffic. You can't prevent the surge of fear when you receive bad news. Those first-wave emotions are biological, hardwired, unavoidable. What you can control is the second wave, the judgment you make about that emotion and what you do next. So when someone disrespects you and anger flares up, the Stoic doesn't deny the anger. They notice it. Ah, there's anger. And then they choose their response. Maybe the anger is justified and action is warranted. Maybe the anger is disproportionate and needs to be released. The key is conscious choice rather than automatic reaction. This matters because so many people try Stoicism, fail to become emotionless, because that's impossible, then conclude Stoicism doesn't work. They've been attempting the wrong thing entirely. The goal isn't no emotions, it's emotional resilience. It's feeling everything fully while not being hijacked by those feelings. It's responding from wisdom rather than reacting from hurt.
The Stoic paradox: care deeply, attach lightly. Here's where Stoicism gets really sophisticated and most modern interpreters completely miss the point. The Stoics advocated for what seems like a contradiction. Care deeply about people and things, but don't attach your well-being to them. Love your partner fully, but recognize they're mortal and you could lose them. Build your business passionately, but understand it could fail. Pursue excellence relentlessly, but don't tie your self-worth to outcomes. This sounds like emotional gymnastics, but it's actually the secret to sustainable happiness. When you love someone and you're prepared for the possibility of losing them, you appreciate them more in the present. When you work hard on a goal and you've made peace with potential failure, you're free to take bold risks. When you care about your reputation and you don't need external validation, you can be authentic. Seneca explained it beautifully. All things human are short-lived and perishable. We must love all our dear ones, but with the understanding that we have no promise that we may keep them forever, nay, no promise even that we may keep them for long. This isn't pessimism, it's the antidote to taking people for granted. It's the cure for the hedonic treadmill that makes you overlook the blessings you have while chasing the ones you don't. Think about it. We live in a culture that promotes intense attachment as proof of love. I can't live without you. You complete me. I'd die if I lost you. The Stoics would say that's not love. That's dependence masquerading as love. Real love involves wanting the best for someone while recognizing they're a separate, autonomous being who you're fortunate to share time with, not a possession you control. Practical Stoicism, the daily practices that actually work. Okay, enough theory. Let's get tactical. If you're serious about implementing Stoicism in 2026 and becoming genuinely unbreakable, here are the daily practices that separate philosophical tourists from actual practitioners. Morning meditation. Before you check your phone, before coffee, spend 5 minutes preparing for the day. Marcus Aurelius did this every morning. Visualize challenges you might face. Remind yourself what's in your control. Set your intention to practice virtue regardless of what happens. This isn't woo-woo manifestation, it's mental preparation, like an athlete visualizing before competition. Evening reflection. Seneca did this religiously. Before bed, review your day. Where did you practice virtue? Where did you fail? What triggered you into reaction instead of response? What would you do differently? This isn't about guilt or self-flagellation. It's about continuous improvement through honest assessment. The pattern you don't examine, you're doomed to repeat. The view from above. This is a Marcus Aurelius special. When you're stressed about something, zoom out. Imagine viewing your situation from space. Your problems are real, but they're also microscopic in the context of the cosmos and time. 1,000 years from now, this moment won't matter. This isn't diminishing your struggles, it's adjusting your perspective so you don't catastrophize. Voluntary discomfort. We covered this, but it bears repeating because it's that important. Once a week minimum, do something uncomfortable on purpose. Fast for 24 hours, take a cold shower, delete social media for a day, sit in silence without distraction, have that difficult conversation. Each instance trains your resilience and proves to yourself that you can handle discomfort. The Stoic Journal. Keep a journal, but not a gratitude journal or a dream journal, a philosophy journal. Record quotes that resonate. Document situations where you reacted poorly and how you could improve. Track your progress on specific virtues. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations was exactly this, his private journal of Stoic practice.
The modern Stoic. Adapting ancient wisdom. Look, we need to acknowledge something. You're not a Roman emperor. You're not fighting barbarians on the frontier or dealing with Senate conspiracies. You're navigating a completely different world. Algorithms designed to hijack your attention, economic systems optimized for anxiety, social media engineered to make you feel inadequate. The Stoics couldn't have anticipated TikTok or Instagram or Twitter pylons. But here's what's wild. Their principles are more relevant now, not less. We're drowning in information but starving for wisdom. We have more comfort and convenience than any generation in history, yet we're more anxious and depressed. We have unprecedented freedom and opportunity, yet we feel trapped and purposeless. The Stoics would recognize this immediately. We've optimized for everything except what actually matters. So, how do you practice Stoicism in the digital age? First, recognize that your phone is the greatest threat to your mental freedom. Every notification is designed to trigger emotion and capture attention. Every algorithm is optimized to show you content that provokes reaction. The Stoics would view this as a direct assault on your rational faculty, the very thing that makes you human and free. Therefore, treating your digital life with Stoic principles isn't optional, it's essential. Control your controllables. Turn off notifications. Establish phone-free times. Curate your information diet as carefully as your food diet. Practice voluntary discomfort. Take regular breaks from social media. When you do engage online, respond from reason rather than reacting from emotion. Second, apply Stoic principles to modern work culture. You can't control whether you get the promotion, but you can control the quality of your work. You can't control your boss's mood, but you can control your response to criticism. You can't control market conditions, but you can control your effort and creativity. The dichotomy of control is your shield against the anxiety epidemic in modern workplaces. Third, use Stoicism to navigate relationships in an age of ghosting, breadcrumbing, and transactional interactions. Care deeply about people while recognizing you can't control their choices. Communicate honestly and directly, set boundaries without apology, practice sympathia. Treat others with dignity and compassion while not requiring them to reciprocate for your well-being. The ultimate Stoic test, adversity. Here's the brutal reality check. You don't know if you're actually Stoic until life punches you in the face. It's easy to be philosophical when things are going well. It's easy to talk about controlling your reactions when nobody's testing you. It's easy to claim you've mastered your emotions when you're comfortable and safe. The Stoics knew this. Seneca wrote, "Disaster is virtue's opportunity." He meant that your character is revealed and forged in crisis, not comfort. When you lose your job, do you collapse into victim mentality or do you assess your options strategically? When you face health issues, do you rage at the unfairness or do you focus on what you can control? When someone betrays you, do you spiral into bitterness or do you extract the lesson and move forward? This is why the Stoics practiced voluntary discomfort and negative visualization. So when involuntary discomfort and actual loss arrived, they'd already trained for it. They were inoculating themselves against catastrophe. They were running fire drills, so when the building actually caught fire, they'd know what to do. And here's what nobody tells you. Becoming unbreakable doesn't mean nothing breaks you. It means when you do break, and you will break, everyone does, you know how to rebuild yourself. The Japanese art of kintsugi repairs broken pottery with gold, making the repaired object more beautiful than the original. That's Stoic resilience. Your cracks and repairs become part of your character, proof of your strength, evidence of your journey. Marcus Aurelius faced unimaginable pressure. Military defeats, plague wiping out huge portions of his empire, betrayal from people he trusted, the death of children, chronic pain from health issues. His response? The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. He wasn't saying this from a beach somewhere, sipping wine and philosophizing. He was saying it from a battlefield, exhausted, grieving, in pain, and still choosing excellence. That's the ultimate Stoic lesson. You choose your response regardless of circumstances. Not because circumstances don't matter, but because your response is the only thing you fully control. Everything else is outside your power, and obsessing over things outside your power is the definition of suffering.
Your Stoic identity. Who you're becoming. Let's bring this full circle. You clicked on a video about reinventing yourself in 2026. But the Stoics would say you're not inventing a new self. You're uncovering your true self. All the ego, the fear, the attachment, the delusion, that's the false self you've constructed for protection. Your true self is the rational, virtuous, resilient being underneath. Epictetus taught that we all have a divine spark of reason within us. We're fragments of the universal intelligence, capable of aligning ourselves with nature and reality. Your job isn't to become something you're not. It's to remove everything preventing you from being what you already are at your core. So who are you becoming in 2026? You're becoming someone who controls what they can and releases what they can't. Someone who loves their fate because they extract growth from every experience. Someone who remembers they're mortal and therefore doesn't waste time on trivial garbage. Someone who builds virtue as their foundation, regardless of external outcomes. Someone who practices discomfort so comfort doesn't weaken them. You're becoming someone who recognizes their thoughts aren't facts. Someone who sees humanity's interconnection and acts accordingly. Someone who tells themselves the truth even when it's uncomfortable. Someone who feels deeply but responds wisely. Someone who cares passionately but attaches lightly. You're becoming unbreakable, not because nothing affects you, but because you've built a core identity that can't be shaken by external circumstances. You're becoming the person who faces obstacles and says, okay, this is hard, this is painful, this is unfair, and I'm going to handle it anyway, because that's what I do. That's who I am. The commitment. What happens next? Here's where the rubber meets the road. You've watched this entire video. You've absorbed 11 Stoic life lessons. You've maybe nodded along, maybe had a few insights, maybe felt motivated. Great. Now comes the moment that determines everything. What do you do in the next 5 minutes? Most people close this video and immediately scroll to something else. The dopamine hit from learning something new fades and they're on to the next thing. They'll remember vaguely that Stoicism is about control and obstacles or something, and that's it. No change, no growth, no transformation. But you're not most people, or you wouldn't have made it this far. You're someone who's genuinely tired of the same patterns. You're someone who knows something needs to change. You're someone who's ready to do the uncomfortable work of actually becoming better. So here's what you do right now. Pick one lesson from these 11, just one. The one that hit you hardest, that exposed a weakness you've been avoiding, that addresses your specific struggle. Write it down, physically write it. Don't just type it in your notes app and forget it. Then decide on one concrete action you'll take in the next 24 hours to practice that lesson. If you chose controlling the controllables, maybe your action is making a list of what's actually in your power regarding your biggest current stressor. If you chose Memento Mori, maybe it's having a conversation you've been postponing because you're acting like you have infinite time. If you chose voluntary discomfort, maybe it's that cold shower you've been theoretically going to try for 6 months. One lesson, one action, 24 hours. That's your commitment. Not to me, not to the Stoics, to yourself. Because here's the secret. Transformation doesn't happen through massive overhauls and dramatic reinventions. It happens through tiny, consistent choices compounded over time. The person who practices one Stoic principle daily for a year will transform more than the person who tries to implement all 11 for a week and burns out. The final word: become who you were meant to be. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the known world, sat in his tent at night after brutal days of war and governance and wrote reminders to himself about being a good person. He didn't write them for you. He didn't write them for fame or legacy. He wrote them because he needed the reminders. Because even emperors struggle, even philosophers fail, even the wisest people need to return to first principles daily. That's what these 11 lessons are. First principles for human excellence. They're not religious dogma. They're not rigid rules. They're navigational tools for the chaos of existence. When you're lost, overwhelmed, suffering, or confused, you return to these principles and ask, what can I control here? How can I use this obstacle? What would the virtuous response be? What really matters? Am I being honest with myself? The Stoics promised something radical: inner peace and resilience regardless of external circumstances, not through avoiding life, but through engaging with it fully, armed with wisdom, not through suppressing emotions, but through mastering your response to them, not through controlling outcomes, but through controlling your character. 2,000 years later, their promise still stands. You can become unbreakable in 2026, not because nothing will challenge you, but because you'll have built an inner fortress that external circumstances can't penetrate. Not because you'll never feel pain, but because you'll know pain doesn't define you. Not because you'll achieve everything you want, but because your worth won't depend on achievement. This is your moment. Not tomorrow, not Monday, not January 1st of next year. Right now. The Stoics would say you've already wasted enough time. You already know what you need to do. You already know the patterns that need to break and the practices that need to start. So stop watching videos about change and become the change. Stop learning about philosophy and start living it. Stop talking about the person you want to be and start being that person right now. Imperfectly, messily, but actually. The obstacle is the way. Your fate is waiting to be loved. Your mortality is ticking. Your virtue is calling. Your true self is ready to emerge from beneath the layers of fear and ego and delusion you've wrapped it in. 2026 isn't going to make you unbreakable. You are going to make you unbreakable. One choice at a time, one day at a time, one practice at a time. Welcome to the beginning. The real work starts now. If you made it this far, you're already different from who you were at the beginning of this video. Comment "Unbreakable" below so I know you finished this journey and you're committing to the path. Subscribe if you want more philosophy that actually changes your life instead of just making you feel good temporarily. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, someone who's stuck, someone who's struggling, someone who's ready. And remember what Marcus Aurelius said. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. The Stoics gave us the blueprint. They proved it works through plague, war, slavery, exile, and every form of human suffering. Now it's your turn to prove it works in your life, with your challenges, in your circumstances. Go be unbreakable. I'll see you in the next one. Stay strong, stay wise, stay stoic.